Have you recently lost a pet and realized that the pet that's still here and hasn't crossed over yet is grieving deeply? Well, today we're going to be talking about what pet grief is really like. We're going to be talking about the things that people do that they think help their pet's grief, but really don't. And then I'm going to talk about what you can do to actually assist your pet in the grieving process. Hi, my name is Danielle MacKinnon. I am an animal communicator. Yes, that means pet psychic. I've been a pet psychic for 20 years. And in that time, I've worked with a lot of animals, a lot of people and their animals, a lot of animals that have crossed over. So today we're going to start out by talking about the pet grieving process. They do absolutely grieve, but they grieve differently and they grieve for different reasons. Animals, when they are alive, are very connected to the unseen. They're very connected to the spirit world. They're very connected to all the stuff that we as humans disconnect ourselves from, but that, like in my school, I teach people how to connect back into their intuition, to their sixth sense, to their gut instinct, to take care of their bodies. Animals are naturally connected to that stuff. They're naturally doing that stuff because that's how they survive. So because animals are so connected already, when one animal crosses over, the animal that's still here retains a connection with the animal that's crossed over. You know, when you see your cat staring off into space or your dog's barking at seemingly nothing, well, and my dog does that a lot. So that is what's happening. They're connected to things that we're not necessarily aware of. So when I have two dogs and one of those dogs crosses over, those two dogs are still talking to each other. They're still aware of each other. If I psychically connect to the dog that's still here, that dog can tell me all about the one that's crossed over. That dog can tell me when the one that's crossed over visits. That dog can tell me basically anything because they still have a relationship. The relationship has changed though, and that's where the grief comes in. So using the example of the two dogs, and hold tight because we're still going to talk about what people think helps animal grief and then what you can actually do to help your animal that's grieving. We've got two dogs here. This one has crossed over. This one is still here. So the one that's still here now does grieve, but grieves the change in their lifestyle, the change in the relationship. They maintain the connection between themselves and their friend on the other side. But now they're not running through the woods together. They're not tumbling around in the living room, growling and playing with the ball because those physical pieces of the relationship have ended. But the energetic pieces, the emotional pieces, the spiritual pieces, they all are still there. So the grief in an animal that's crossed over is actually related to two things. The first piece is what I'm just talking about here, which is this animal that's still here, their relationship with the animal that's crossed over has changed. The second piece that adds to the animal that's still here's grief is us. So when we feel sad, when we behave differently, when we change our thoughts, our behavior, our emotions regarding our animals, they know it and they feel it. So using myself as an example, I had two dogs. When one crossed over, there was a part of me that felt bad for spending time with my dog that was still here. So I didn't for a little while, nor did my husband. And so she was not just grieving the change in the relationship between her and my dog that crossed over, but also the fact that we weren't doing the normal things that we do. I was sad. I wasn't taking her out as much. We weren't doing the big long walks. So that made her sad as well. So that's the way that I've seen animals are grieving when there are pets, through talking with them through animal communication. Now, your animal, the animal that's still here, the animal that's grieving, they're going to want you to connect with them and be with them. But as humans, our thing is we don't want to, we feel bad, we're grieving, we feel sad, we want to pull the covers over our head, we want to do all this kind of stuff. But the animal that's still here wants us desperately to do that stuff. So now let's talk about the things that people do that they think are helping their animal that's grieving that are actually not. When you feel bad for your pet that's still here, what do? A lot of people, they hug their pet and they cry into their pet and they say, I'm so sorry, you're missing Rover, and they baby their pet. And what is all that? That is not the normal behavior that we would usually do with the pet when the other one was alive. So what ends up happening is now we've got the animal grieving the change in the relationship between themselves and the animal that's crossed over. They're also grieving the change in our relationship because we're not acting like our normal selves, and now they need to adjust. They're also being put upon by us babying them, feeling bad for them. These are all weaker energies. And to an animal, when we're in a weaker energy, they're in our home, they're in our personal lives. And what it tells them is we're weak, they need to step it up. Well, they can't. They're animals. They're animals in our human lives. So they can't. So now they're challenged with all of this. Well, now I need to step it up. Danielle's not present the way she used to be, that kind of thing. So now this poor animal that's still here has a big, big challenge ahead of them. So what do? What can you do that's going to help your pet that's still here who's grieving? Now's the time to realize that you have the opportunity to build a different relationship with the pet that's still here, a new relationship based on what this pet loves and what you love with this pet. It's time to kind of build that and expand it and grow it into its own thing that isn't so dependent on the animal that crossed over. This is a really big deal. This is your opportunity to connect with this pet. Animals don't want us feeling bad for them. They don't want us babying them. They want to be in their normal world, having their relationship with you, whatever that is. So the best way to help your animal who's grieving is to build your new relationship with them. And of course, you're going to be grieving a little bit in there, and they're going to be grieving, and everybody's adjusting, but that is the absolute best way. When I connect with someone who says, okay, we're working on building it the new way. We're working on getting this going. I'm figuring out, oh, she doesn't really like the walks in the woods, but she loves the beach. And so we're going to do more of that. That's you developing your relationship, the individual relationship with your pet who's still here. And that's what will help them the most.